Well, I've come out to Ballanette SCS HQ, and with me is Professor Peter Bridgewater, who is biosphere expert, because you really got behind the Isle of Man's application, didn't you?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. It was, I think, a very successful listing. Mm-hmm. UNESCO was very, very interested in this whole concept of having an entire jurisdiction, both the land and the sea. Mm-hmm. It was a first, and it remains so. So it's an important, very important addition to UNESCO's list.
Today we've got lots of children from Laxey here, and they're doing their bit.
They're doing their bit, and I think this is really important because planting a tree, often you see people plant trees as symbols of commemorative things. You know, the initial tree is planted in some garden or another. This is different. This is planting trees to help manage the climate. And we know that we are in a slight degree of difficulty with the climate, and we need to do something about it, both to mitigate and to adapt. Mm-hmm. And so planting lots of trees actually makes a lot of sense, because the trees absorb the carbon and they push out oxygen.
At the same time, you're teaching these children the responsibility they've got for the next generation, I'm guessing.
Exactly. It's their generation. I mean, some say our generation, maybe mine particularly, has made a mess of things, and these poor guys have got to now sort it out and live with it. So starting off the idea and the concept that, hey, we're planting trees and this is all going to help, is really a good idea.
Now back to you in the biosphere and all that sort of thing. The Isle of Man gets so long, doesn't it? And then they get checked out again. Do you think we're looking good to keep it going, or what do you think?
Oh yes, I would think so. I mean, it's a 10-year periodic review.
Right.
So that's 10 years from the original listing. So I guess we're about halfway there now. And as far as I can see, things are actually going rather well.
Good.
There's a lot of very good communication coming out about the Biosphere Reserve. There's a very high degree of interest. From what I know from biosphere reserves around the world, the degree to which the farming community, the fishing community, business particularly, is involved is not necessarily unique, but the degree of interaction with all those different bodies, the education aspects such as you're seeing here, and the interest in government from the Chief Minister downwards is, I think, a very good sign that things are going well.
Well, we had uniqueness as an island. I think Isle of Wight have now joined us, haven't they? They've got in there.
Well, the Isle of Wight is where, when I say I'm from the Isle of Man, most people say, oh, that's that place near Southampton, isn't it? Yes. Yeah. So I don't think that's the same thing.
Okay.
The Isle of Wight's an interesting addition, but it's a piece of Little England. It's not the Isle of Man.
Is there more we should all be doing, by the way, here on the island? I mean, obviously plastics and things like that.
I think one of the things that is actually very interesting about the Biosphere Reserve, for example, is it's not just environment, it's also about culture. And I think Culture Vannin is getting more and more interested in how they interact, the revival of the Manx language, the continuing use and improvement of the Manx language, the spreading of that amongst kids. This is a really important aspect of the Biosphere Reserve because it gives that identity. And it makes the Isle of Man not just another biosphere, but it's actually the sense of place that you've got in the Isle of Man. And that's really critical.
Politicians have got to keep their eye on the ball.
Of course. Which is
all of us, maybe even actually.
Yes, I mean, you elect the politicians, so they represent the community, but it is the community in the end that makes the Biosphere Reserve work well, and can either make sure that it's really well done, or that it actually doesn't work in the end. But there are very few that get delisted. Although having said that, I'm actually living in Australia at the moment, and I've just supervised the removal of 12 Australian biosphere reserves because none of them were complying. They were all just essentially nature reserves with no people in them at all. And the whole idea of the biosphere is that it's people, and what I say is people and the rest of nature, because far too often people are seen as like here and nature is there. It's not the case. People and nature are together. And that's what the Biosphere Reserve is all about.